Here we go. Aloha, guys. I'm Dozen Hakias. I'm the host of Healing with Aloha Podcast. I'm excited to have my guest today, Don Joseph Goeway. He is a consultant of the Center of Spiritual Exchange, the official archive for the works of Anthony DeMello, who passed in 1987. DeMello is regarded as one of the great spiritual minds of the 20th century, influencing the likes of Eckhart Tolle and Thomas More. DeMello's books have sold more than 2 million worldwide. Don recently edited from the work of Anthony DeMello, a new book titled Stop Fixing Yourself, Awake It Up, All Is Well. Previously, Don managed the Department of Psychiatry at Stanford Medical School and directed the Center for Attitudinal Healing that pioneered an approach to overcoming catastrophic life events, which in 2005 was awarded the Excellence in Medicine citation by the American Medical Association. Don is also the author of Amazon bestseller, The End of Stress. And so I'm so glad to have you here today. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so awesome because we went through this morning, tried to go live on Instagram, and for us to be here, and I appreciate your calmness in all of this.
I appreciate yours as well.
So I was looking forward to having you here and just really share with everyone why, Mr. Anthony DeMello was so instrumental, not just our past, but even now and the future to come, because the teachings that he shared, the two people you shared that has influence on is very prominent today.
Yeah, they're very prominent. And he Eckhart Tolle recommends 20 books, and Anthony DeMello's book called Awareness is one of them. When we were offline, you were talking about your story of how you came to this work of extending healing and opportunities for healing to people out there in the world. It's what Anthony DeMello did, and it's what I turned my life towards doing. This field that I'm in, that Anthony DeMello contributed quite a bit to, is now being called psychospirituality. And what that represents is the convergence of three major fields: psychology, neuroscience, science of the brain, how our brain works, and spirituality. And by that, we don't necessarily mean religion, but we mean practical living from practical spiritual values. And for a long time, those three fields were rather at odds with each other.
Yes.
And now they've merged, they've come to the same meeting point, like all these roads have finally found a meeting point where they've converged. And that's the field that I'm in. And that's what Anthony DeMello is contributing to with his practical spirituality. And I came into this field the hard way. Years ago, I experienced what you might call a perfect storm of stress. I lost that executive level position I had at Stanford University Medical School that I had devoted a decade, climbing that old career ladder to reach.
Right.
And then 9 days after losing that job, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor that the doctors would leave me disabled and potentially unable to work again. And at the time I was married with 4 children, and my marriage was in trouble because my main focus was on my career. And so suddenly, there I was. My life was coming apart at the seams, and it seemed like there was nothing I could do about it. And I got scheduled for the brain surgery, and I had to wait 4 weeks. And I can tell you the first 2 weeks of that waiting period was torture because I was so afraid. I was terrified.
Yeah.
Every night I'd wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning out of a bad dream in a cold sweat. And I go into the living room and I'd stare out the big picture window out into the cold, dark night. And it looked like a black hole that was going to suck me and my family in. And that went on for 2 weeks. It was exhausting. And then one night I reached this point where I had to seriously question what was worse, the dire problems that the medical people were predicting that might happen to me in the future, depending on certain outcomes, or was the fear, the abject fear that I was experiencing every day and currently right at that moment. And it was pretty clear, it was obvious that what was worse was that bone-chilling fear I was experiencing, because it was consuming me. It was depleting the strength I knew I needed to get through this ordeal. And so for the next half hour, I used a process I'm going to talk about here in this interview, a process that I had learned years before from one of America's great psychologists that I had the privilege of working with. And he taught it to me, but, I never actually really used it. I actually taught it to other people. I never really used it on myself. I think we all do that.
Yes, we do.
Not very good students. And I remembered it enough to work with it. And what it's about is being diligently aware of every fearful, painful thing that I was thinking, and to be willing to feel it, not to repress it, not to suppress it, not to try to turn it into something positive, but just to observe it, to let it be as it was, and to detect the thoughts that were driving these negative emotional reactions that were so painful. And then as I allowed it, then the next task was to see this upset as not in reality, but in me.
The turmoil.
Because when you see it out there in reality, you're in a place where you have absolutely no control. When you turn inward and look for the problem inside, now you're in control. And one of the things Anthony Mello says is that through awareness, we gain control over our experience. But unawareness means that our experience, the outside world begins to control us. So it's a complete shift in direction, and it's a complete shift from lack of control to regaining control, and in particular over your attitude. Nothing determines your experience more than your attitude. So I let myself experience that painful negativity. And eventually what I began to experience is that the weight of it began to soften, and it began to drop. And the more I practiced, because, I would get to a point where I'd calm down, but then some thought would come up like, yeah, you're calm right now, but tomorrow you're going to be screwed. You're still facing surgery. And so you have to process that again. And I would think about, we're going to be homeless, living on the street. And that would raise a big upset. And so as I did that over and over again with whatever came up, meeting it with awareness, meeting it with the willingness to let it be as it is, not trying to change it, but just to experience it, and reminding myself this is in me, not necessarily in reality. I finally reached this point of real calm, and my mind quieted down. And I noticed that there was a flicker of feeling in my heart. My heart was beginning to open. I'd shut it completely down. Fear had shut it completely down. And then I knew that I had reached a deep place, a place where peace resided. When I looked back out that picture window, where I just an hour before had seen this black hole about to suck me into oblivion, what I saw at that moment was the oak tree that was in front of our home, this beautiful ancient oak tree, and the moonlight was shimmering on the leaves. And it had been there, that's all along, and it really felt sacred. It felt beautiful. And I realized that the outside, the world outside me hadn't changed. I had changed. I was seeing differently. And so I made up my mind right then and there that as I processed whatever fears came up as I went through the next 2 weeks before surgery, that I was going to let go of fear in this way, using awareness. And to my amazement, it worked. I mean, I had a lot of fearful thoughts that came and went, but I didn't indulge not a single one of them. And by the time I showed up for surgery, I was kind of in a
happy.
my friend Terrell said, he said, you know, you're kind of blissful for a guy who's facing brain surgery. And I was. And the surgery was a complete success. It was kind of a miracle. And, you know, if neuroscientists back in the 1980s, when this happened, they would have, if I would have asked him, do you think my change of attitude, my change of mind, my shift in direction that was accomplished through awareness, do you think that it had an effect on the outcome of this surgery? And they would have back then said, no, that's hippie nonsense. I know for sure they would have. But
I'm gonna say that's probably what they would have said.
Yeah, but if they knew, if those scientists back then know what neuroscience knows now, they would have said absolutely. Because the mind-body connection is definitive now in medicine. We know that our state of mind affects the state of our biology. And we also know that your state of mind affects the state of your brain, whether you're turning down neurocircuits that make you powerfully creative, powerfully positive, powerfully intelligent, or it's dumbing those down, dulling those neurocircuits down, because fear and stress release stress hormones that shrink the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And so that's how I came into this field. Well, it turns out that Anthony DeMello, I came across him later, and right at the core of his teaching is this process of awareness that I'd learned from Carl Rogers and that I had used to save my life. And like you said when we were offline, when I look back on that experience, what I thought at the time was an absolute curse turned out to be the greatest blessing of my life.
Yeah.
And
people don't realize that
your pain, wouldn't happen
your
with
pain, the pain that we go through, the fears and the worries, on the other side of it is love.
Yes, absolutely. And what's on the other side of when we stop looking outside for ourselves and turn to look inside, that's the other thing. That's the thing we also find is love. At the core of our being, the essence of our being is love. It's blocked.
For ourselves and others.
For ourselves and others. Well, exactly. And you know, it's just a change in direction that's just so important to make. So that the point is that you were born happy. You were born at peace. You were born joyful. You were born full of a sense of wonder. I invite people all the time, when you're around little children, look at them. That's where science looks when it's trying to determine what is this thing we call human nature. Is it good? Is it evil? Well, years ago, they started looking to children. They figured, well, this is the way we show up. This is when we're most innocent.
Pure, yeah.
And what does that innocence that we're born into, that we come from and arrive here with? Well, it's happiness. Children are naturally happy, naturally joyful, naturally loving. But we lose it. We lose it.
I agree.
So if you go around and you look at the research on stress, on anxiety, what you find is that there's only 4% of the population that are able to say that they are completely happy, that it's unaffected by the ups and downs of life. Their happiness is the constant in them. Only 4%. That means that 96% of us aren't. And the irony is, as I'm saying, we were born happy. We were born free, but we've been trapped in limited thinking. You know, we were born with this loving, open heart that stress and fear so easily close. We're born, you know, gifted beings of immeasurable worth, but we often end up not feeling good enough. We all end up in a shame response. And, you know, we're born into this divinity of joy that's within us and surrounding us, that if we could get in touch with it, it would make our lives meaningful, beautiful.
Yeah.
But we become blocked from it. And it's as if, you know, we've been hypnotized. It's like somebody in society dragged us up on stage and hypnotized us to see what is not there, and to fail to see what actually is there.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
I
programmed it out of
agree.
us.
And I love it. One of the things that has been coming up, and I'm sure you're familiar. They're talking about like generational trauma. People are dealing with that, and there comes a point where maybe we've had that in our families, right? I come from, my great grandparents are immigrants, but it was a survival tactic for them to survive, that they weren't dealing with how their spirituality, their feelings, their emotions, their mental health and whatnot. That whole terminology, psychology, mental health and whatnot didn't come into play until more recently. And so I had to learn to, like you said, be aware, step back, and look beyond my parents and my grandparents and realize that they weren't taught, they weren't nurtured, they didn't have the tools, and then move forward. And now I'm an adult and I can take responsibility and show grace and mercy, and take what was good that I learned from my parents and then change it up so I can be a better parent for my child. You know what I mean? Because there's always that pointing fingers, and I'm like, no, it's not healthy for me. You know what I mean? And learning to let go. And then in some situations, for some people, if the relationships are unhealthy and you try to heal through with people and they don't want to, then it's okay to not be okay, and like to forgive and have reconciliation within yourself, and not try to force it with someone who's not willing to. You know what I mean? Like if there's a traumatic events with certain relationships, personal or professional.
Yes, it's beautiful.
So,
Yeah, the understanding that, from their understanding, they were doing the best that they could, even if it turned out horrible. The one thing that all the generations share, I haven't gotten beyond this yet, is how society programs that joy, that happiness, that innocence out of us. Society stamps into us, and the way it does that, it stamps into us the belief that, happiness, self-worth, they are found out there in the world. And if we work long and hard enough, success will eventually come to whatever degree it does. And out of that, happiness and fulfillment will follow. And every generation has swallowed that. Everybody listening here has swallowed that to some degree. Maybe less in Hawaii than in New York City, but everybody's seeking their happiness and fulfillment out there in the world. And we're so success driven. And, we swallow that. And 10 years later, we realize that, success has come to whatever degree it has come, but it's come without fulfillment. And that's that's failing at living. That's waking up, is the realization that, contrary to what society has taught us, nothing, absolutely nothing of the world can make you happy. Success is important. Obviously we have goals and dreams and desires, but success is not the same as fulfillment. Fulfillment doesn't come from the world. Happiness doesn't come from the world. Not that radiant happiness of a child that we've been talking about that makes you smile for no reason.
Just because,
From here.
Yeah, the one thing I realize is that for everyone, success is different. And, when you deal with grief and loss, and you miss somebody and you just love them, sometimes success is just getting out of bed. And that's what I try to explain to people is that, when you're dealing with your health, when you're dealing with missing someone, going through a divorce, a breakup, or something traumatic, for some people, success is going to be just getting out of bed, because you're so heartbroken and heavy-hearted by your reality that to get out of bed is a big deal. And I said, and it's okay. And I think what happens, like you said, society, we're looking around and comparing ourselves, and we're always feeling like we'll never be. But it's the fulfillment doesn't have to be a great job, money in the bank, or like having a nice house, but success and fulfillment, it can sometimes it can go like polar opposites. And so that's why we have to become aware, like what really matters. At the end of our lives, will this really matter? No.
And if your emotions are so intense that you can't get out of bed, it's important to hold somewhere in your mind, somewhere in your heart, that there are people who can't even get out of bed because their bodies won't let them out of bed, but whose attitude is radiant. I've worked with those people, that center that you talked about in the opening, the Center for Attitudinal Healing. We work with some of the most stressful situations in the world. People who were dying, families who were dealing with the loss, parents who had lost children, prisoners serving life sentences in jail. We even were sent by the Clinton administration to Croatia and Bosnia to work with the refugees with their severe post-traumatic stress from that genocidal war. And in that work, I came across people who had been reduced really in a material sense, in a worldly sense, to nothing. And yet through that experience, they came through that experience and found what they considered to be everything, because the only thing they were left with was a love in their heart.
Wow.
And when they opened to that, when they found their way to open to that, they said they could endure anything. I worked with AIDS patients who literally could not they couldn't even sit up in bed, let alone get out of bed. And to look into their face, into their eyes, was some of these people, their face and eyes were radiant. So it's important to remember that we have within us resilience. Those people who did that, not because they're special, it's because they've turned inward and found that source of power that's inside of all of us. And so when you're in a great deal of pain, of emotional pain because of what's happening on the outside, it's important to remember there are people in this world, ordinary people, who have made extraordinary choices that have kept their hearts open. They're not closing their hearts to themselves, to other people, to their life. That's really important to remember. And you know what? One of these things these people are teachers of is a really important truth about happiness. The truth about happiness is there's not a single moment in our lives when we don't have all we need to be happy. The only reason we're ever unhappy is because we're focusing on what we don't have rather than what we have right here, right now. And this new book, we're talking about, Stop Fixing Yourself, that I assembled from the works of Anthony Mello, it helps you rediscover that truth about yourself. It helps you walk you to that place, and where that truth becomes your truth because it becomes your experience.
And we were talking before we went live about Stop Fixing Yourself. Can you explain more like what that entails, the whole fixing yourself thing?
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally what it means is, well, first of all, let me back up a minute. We're all running around trying to find the answer. We're all seeking, Here we are. The truth of the matter is you're happy already. You're enlightened already. There's joy in you already. There's the solution to your problems in you already. But you're blocked from it. And so we go around seeking books, workshops, lectures, people, podcasts like you and I, hopefully we're going to hear something that's going to break through to fix ourselves. And so DeMello, he said one of the questions he was always asked is, what do I need to do to change myself? Tell me. And he said, I got a big surprise for you. He said, nothing. You don't need to do anything to change yourself. You're not broken. You're not some problem to be solved. You're okay. If there's a problem, it's the way we were programmed to believe that without something or some person or some result or outcome, we can't be happy. And it's a false belief. We don't acquire or earn or study our way into being happy, or we wake up to it. It's in us already. So you drop that false belief and the struggle with the world drops, and peace arises all by itself. And you know, all the mystics are
They were shocked.
yeah, all the mystics are, one of the things they're unanimous about is that all is well. All is well. Wake up, they say, all is well, because you are. Even if things are a mess, even if you're in debt, even if you've got this neurosis that's been programmed to you that runs willy-nilly, all is well when you begin to understand that the problem is not out there. Turn around and come in, and whoever you speak to for help and guidance, God, the universe, love, all that is, turn in and ask for help with the problem of your upset. Help me heal this upset. Help me see through it to this other side where the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus called it, resides, that we're all living in unsuspectingly. We just don't know it. And so turn inward. And if you're asking for anything, has to be, what, wake me up. Wake me up. Help me to see through. So that's what the Mello is saying. And, you know.
And, you know, I think sometimes when people are so academic, or like when they're trying to look at it academic, you know, like when you overanalyze it, you're not going to get it. Like what he's saying, it's like it goes over people's head because it's too simple to go inward.
Yes, it is.
Like, can you write the equation down? No, there's no equation, guys.
There's no equation. No, it's a turning. It's a turning. It's, you know, it's understanding that nothing outside of you upsets you. That can be a hard one for people. You know, what about this? What about that? What about this? You know, there is so much in this world you don't control and will never control. And some days are, you know, better than others. Things work out. Other days, nothing works out. You know, the way of the world is it goes up and down, up and down. And if your emotional state, your spiritual state, your sense of self and who and what you are is dependent on what's happening out there, it's going to be like this, you know.
Right.
And that's going to wear you down. And as it wears you down, it's going to be more like negative. You're going to start reacting negative. Your vibrational force is going to be negative. What you're going to attract to you is going to be negative. And it's going to go on and on and on. So what DeMello is telling us, you know, I got a big surprise for you. You don't have to do anything. The trouble with most people is that, you know, they're busy trying to fix things in themselves. They don't even understand. So, you know, it's like what you said offline is that you went to see a psychotherapist thinking that what you were going there for was to heal the grief you had about your sister's passing. And you found out it went way deeper than that.
Yeah, you know? There's a lot of layer of trauma. Yeah.
There's an old saying in spirituality is you're never upset for the reason you think. And
yeah.
So
it's true.
How do you approach all that? How do you approach the fact that you don't need to do anything to change yourself? Well, what DeMello was telling us, it's enough for you to simply be watchful and aware. Through awareness, all that is false and neurotic and outwardly directed, it will begin to drop. You do awareness for a few short weeks. Believe me, I'm telling you from my own experience. And the quality of your life will begin to change. You'll respond to life differently from here, from your heart.
From your heart. Yeah.
Not from your fear. You'll be much more alive. Your eyes will open to the truth that people everywhere are searching for, namely that fountainhead of peace and joy that hides in every human heart. So, you know, it's a question of taking a look at the way you've been put together, the way society programmed your brain, and the way it has you functioning. And you're going to find inside your brain, there's this whole program stamped into you, a set of demands about how the world is supposed to be, how other people are supposed to be with you, how you should be, what you should want. It's insisting all the time that those demands be met by life, by people, by you. And if the demands are met, you know, your brain calms down a little bit, feels some elation, some self-satisfaction, but we all know it's short-lived. The next thing, you know, we're looking for the bad thing coming around the corner because that's the way we're wired. But if they're not met, which is probably at least half the time and probably more, even though it's no fault of ours, Our
Yeah.
brain generates
Life.
negative
Yeah.
emotions that cause us to suffer. And so who do we blame? We blame the world. We blame other people for it. So we've been trained, make no mistake about it, we've
Point
been
fingers.
trained to stress ourselves, to upset ourselves.
Mm.
So what do you do about it? Well, how do you get deprogrammed from the way your brain got wired by society, meaning your parents and school and religion and stepping out into the world as an adult into the workplace, the media, everything you watch on TV and at the movies, all of that's programmed you. So how do you deprogram yourself? And the answer, again, is awareness. And Mello gives us 4 steps, a very simple process that we should be doing every single day as we meet upsets as they arise. So you want me to walk you through that?
Yes, I definitely want you to. This is good.
So, awareness, simple awareness allows you, it's a form of waking up, right? Awareness allows you to see and feel what's going on inside you. It sabotages your happiness, sabotages your peace, sabotages your sense of connection with all that is, especially with other people. So it's the negativity, the upsets, the pessimism, the aggression, the competitiveness, and especially the shame and worthlessness that we all live with. And we all want to push away. We don't want any part of, and when we indulge, we end up feeling terrible regret. We have to ask for forgiveness. Or if we're not asking for forgiveness, we're justifying it, rationalizing it in some silly way. So as you make an unconscious pattern conscious, it dissolves. All of psychotherapy is based on that principle. So the first thing you need to do is to get in touch with negative feelings that you're usually not aware of, or that if you are aware of, that you tend to repress or suppress, you tend to push away. Gloominess, moodiness, depression, shame, that turns into self-hatred. You feel life is pointless. You're angry, you're anxious, you're worrying constantly. Observe that. Get in touch with those feelings. Notice the thoughts you're thinking that are fueling those feelings. And it won't be comfortable. It'll be, you're essentially allowing yourself to be in pain. And some people think this would ruin me. This could destroy me. It can't destroy you. Not being aware of it and in touch with it is going to ruin your happiness. That's for sure. The awareness process brings you to a point at which those things begin to stop having power over you. So what do? You step back from it. It's important you look at it as if you're watching another person suffering like this. It gives you some sort of perspective, some sort of objectivity, but at the same time, allowing yourself to feel the upset. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, if you're afraid of your fear, start with, I'm afraid of my fear. It's a half step that will eventually give you the courage to take a full step. And then the second step is to acknowledge that the negative feeling, the upset, the pain, the suffering that it's causing, it's not in reality. Reality's neutral. If you planned a wonderful picnic and, you worked on the decorations and the cooking and getting the right beverages and inviting everybody, and you're all excited, and, you drive to the park and it rains,
which happens.
You get really upset, like, this is horrible. Is the rain to blame? Reality is just reality. It's neutral. The upset's in you. So the second step is to acknowledge that the negative feelings in you. And the third step is not to identify with that negative feeling, not to judge yourself for it. That's where the shame comes in.
Yeah. Why did you even feel that? Yeah.
Exactly. Why you might say, why am I this way? What's wrong with me? You notice you're saying those things to yourself, then ask yourself, well, what does it feel when I say that? What's wrong with me? Well, I feel shame. Okay. Bring that into awareness. Be with that. Watch it as if you're watching it happening in another person, but at the same time feeling it. Keep running it through. They call it grist for the mill. Keep running the wheat and it'll separate out. Your upsets have nothing to do with your true self. So the Mello prescription he gives us is, don't say, I am depressed, your brain takes that literally. Your brain's very literal. So don't say I am depressed, I am afraid, I am worried. If you want to say my experience right now is depression, or depression is there right now, that's fine. If you want to say fear is there, stress is there, that's fine. But not I am afraid. You're defining yourself in terms of an emotion. You're far greater than any emotion. That's your illusion. That's your mistake. So in no way that feeling affects your essential self. It's like if you threw black paint up into the air, and the air, does the air get contaminated? No, paint comes down, splashes on the ground, and absorbed by the ground. So you never color the air black, and no matter what happens to you emotionally, you remain uncontaminated. Your essential self remains pure. So,
right.
So again, if there is a depression there right now, if there's worry there right now, let it be, leave it alone, and then remind yourself it will pass, because everything passes, especially emotions. What upset you yesterday and may have even had you on your knees, 2 weeks from now, you won't even remember. Everything passes. Remind yourself. And what will happen is you'll notice that it begins to calm down, just like in my personal story. It begins to lose its valence, its power. And your brain begins to quiet down. You begin to quiet down. You notice that there'll be a flicker of light feeling in your heart. That's your heart opening again. And if you meet that with a quiet mind, if you silence all of the ego chatter, you just remain quiet as much as possible, and you remain open, your heart open, what you will notice is that happiness, that a feeling of contentment and peace that's very fulfilling will begin to arise all by itself. And then you'll know you've come back to your original nature. You've come back home to yourself. You've come back to the experience you were born and intended to have. And that's what you do, and people I coach will ask me, well, so I just have to do this for 2 weeks. And I say, oh, no, you have to do this for the rest
of your life.
And they say, well, should I take a time out to do it? And I said, no, you meet your upset when it happens. You meet it in the here and now. And it's not something you make an appointment to do. When you know that you have a reaction, meet it with awareness. And what you will notice that those negative emotions will begin to turn into your friend, like a wise old friend that taps you on the shoulder and says, you know what, Don, you're beginning to worry here. You might want to step back from this and feel what's going on inside of you. And now that becomes your response to it instead of going crazy.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think like I was telling you earlier, I dealt with losing 2 people traumatically to vehicle-related accidents. And initially, I never looked at it the way you're explaining, being aware. My journey is long, dealing with my sister's passing in 2001. It took 17 years before I felt I could go public to talk about it, because I just didn't like the truth of it. It was my truth. My sister died unexpectedly from a vehicle accident, but acknowledging it publicly, it was I had to detach myself. I had to go, if I can help someone like me through the podcast, that's powerful, because I can be the me that I wish I had when I was going through it. Because back then I was 26, she was 23. There wasn't people who had lost people tragically in my life at the time, or even lost anybody. They hadn't lost a family member that was close to them. And so I said, well, through the podcast, if I can help one person not feel alone, to have hope and to have healing, and to do it, grief and loss, mental health, and to realize that you can live a life with passion, that our pain can drive us to have passion, to just be more grateful for the things that matter, and the things that don't, we can just let it go. That's right. I think that's pretty much what Mello, I never got to know him, his teachings, but that's basically in a nutshell, what he's taught that. And when you can get to that point, it's beautiful. Of course I miss my family, and I the emotions, the feelings, the grief comes in waves, and I let it flow through. Before I'd be like, yo, I don't want to feel, I don't want to cry, I don't want to, and if you block yourself from letting things come through you, you block yourself from feeling happiness, joy, and love and peace.
Yes.
And so that's why, like you said, become aware and let it come through and be aware and talk to it. You know, like, okay, you're feeling afraid. Okay, I know you feel like it's going to be really bad. It's really not that bad.
I would even recommend you don't talk to it. You just feel it. You get in touch with what's going on. You know where it's coming from. You know, somebody insulted you, for example.
Yeah, when you're little.
Yes, and you got this big upset about it. And now your upset is turning into hatred. Now you want to attack this person, or you want to withdraw from this person completely. You have this whole reaction that's going on inside of you. And don't talk to it, just be in it. Allow it to be, watch it. And that's that part of looking back. You're looking down, and at first you're going to look down and this is like, oh my God, you know, this is really a violent reaction I'm having. And then you might come to the realization, I've been having this kind of reaction every time somebody insulted me or looked at me sideways all my life. And eventually what your intuition, what your heart will do for you, it'll connect the dots. And you'll begin to understand where this got programmed into you, and why it creates this kind of reactivity inside of you. And when you come through that understanding, just through that understanding of it, meeting it with understanding, not trying to change it, but really trying to understand, not trying to understand it even, but understanding, I get it. You know, your intuition shows you angry face of your parent or angry face of a teacher or somebody who put you down and embarrassed you in a group, and how that programmed into your brain a defensiveness and a reactivity that has cost you in your life when you misperceive somebody that you thought was insulting you who may not have, you know, or even if they did mean it. You didn't feel the freedom within yourself to ignore it. You know, you picked it up, you took it in, it created a shame response. You're watching all of this. That's all you have to do. The understanding will come of its own through your intuition. You know, I had this experience a few years ago, walking down the hallway to my office, and everything was going great. My books were selling, business was good, my relationships were wonderful. My family relationships and friendships were wonderful. And this cloud of dread came over me.
Oh, no.
And that's exactly what I said. I said, what's this? And it took a moment. I did challenge it with, everything is going swimmingly. And yet, like something bad is going to come and take it off. And so since I was working with awareness, I didn't push it away, or I didn't indulge it even more and get really worried. I went into my living room. I work at home. I went into my living room and sat down and went through this very awareness process that I just outlined for everybody. And it was very painful. And at the end, and then of course, I said, this is in me. It's certainly not in reality. Reality is looking pretty good right now. This does not match with reality at all.
Yeah.
It has to be within me. That's obvious. And so it passed. I got really, really quiet. And then what my intuition began to feed me were scenes from my childhood in which I was really programmed to believe that you could never trust when a good thing happened because a bad thing was right around the corner. And that I could never trust myself to keep a good thing going because my mean old stepfather went out of his way to let me know that I would turn everything I tried to do in my life to crap. That's what he taught me.
Wow.
These scenes began to appear. And then I began to understand that what they had programmed into me had also been programmed into them by their society, by their family of origin. Just like the ones, and it goes all the way back to that story of Cain and Abel in the Bible. It's been with us forever. And so through that understanding, it became conscious, this dread. Some mornings I wake up and I wake up to it. It's programmed into my brain. Those through awareness, the upsets keep coming depending on the depth of the programming.
Yeah.
But you can be sure of this. If you have not, I've not seen a single person who gave time to being aware in this way who didn't quickly find freedom, find release from those old torments and tortures and turmoil. And so now when it comes up, for a while when it would come up, I'd go, oh no, here we got to do the awareness thing.
Right.
I was good about it. I did it. And then eventually when it would come up, I'd laugh at it. What used to be my tragedies, now a comedy movie, right?
Right.
And then now when it comes up, it's like a fly or a mosquito just came in the room. Get out of here. And I meet it, and the program within me has changed to let it go immediately at the point of inception. And in that moment, I return to the here and now. And it does feel like at times the world we're living in, the life we're having, is a big, long journey. But never forget that the journey has only one destination point, and that's to arrive at the here and now, to be right here, right now, with an open mind, with empty hands, and to see the world fresh and new, as if you're seeing it for the first time, like a child sees it. That's why I always invite people, watch children. I'm not saying that you can get by in the adult world by acting like a child. I'm not saying behave like a children. Yeah. I'm saying have the heart of a child. And when you look at children playing, and you look at their innocence and their joy and their sense of wonder about everything, what you are looking at is what's been programmed out of you, what you've lost, which you regain through becoming aware of the ways in which you've been programmed to block that experience. So
the rules, the regulations, the standards.
Yes. You're seeking for what it blocks. You don't have to seek the happiness. You already have it. All you need to seek for is the blocks to your happiness, and you will find your happiness.
I agree. So my mother, she babysits my cousin's daughter. She just turned 4, and when she comes over, she likes to play with me, auntie. So we do art, we do singing, we do dancing, we do jewelry making, painting, whatever. And what I learned from her is her only job is to have fun. And so I have to catch up to her, because you don't realize as adults we can get so serious, Yeah. But with her, she's like, I'll be like, okay, I'm working right now. Like, okay, when you're done, are you done yet? And I think we lose that part of us. Like, even as adults, we can still have fun. Like, yes, we need to work, but we need to play. And for me, like watching the sunrise, I'm in Hawaii, watching the sunrise, watching the sunsets, taking pictures of flowers, that helps me, because it puts it in my brain, like, okay, this is important right here. The problems are gonna come and go, but look, and I have to start doing more activities to calm my brain. And she's taught me that. And so music, dancing, being silly, painting, I have to make it a priority. And if you don't make self-care a priority, doing activities that bring you calm, then you're gonna let the outside control you. But just us taking control back to become aware. Going back to what were the things that brought you joy and happiness, and integrating that more into your life, so that you can, and being on this stressful, like you said, that wheel, the gerbil on the wheel, like, we keep ourselves in that wheel of stress, but at any time we can jump off the wheel and choose not to be there. And so I appreciate like what you're sharing about the teachings of the Mello, and being aware and making a decision to not let the outside control who we are. We're always valuable. It doesn't matter what we've been through. Our self-worth was never built upon people's opinions of us, although we can feel that way.
Oh, we certainly do. We're all seeking approval and reacting to what we perceive as someone else's disapproval, and it's a kind of a prism. You know, the source of our suffering is attachment. That's what the Buddha said. The source of all suffering is your attachment to controlling the outside world is what it boils down to. And what an attachment is emotionally, it's a state of clinging caused by that belief that without something or person or result, outcome, you can't be happy. And, at some point, I invite all your listeners to take out a sheet of paper and at the header, top part, write down, I cannot be happy unless or until, and then fill in both the front and back of that page, fill in the blank. For example, I cannot be happy unless my boss appreciates me, or I cannot be happy until I'm out of debt, or I cannot be happy until the pandemic is over, or I can't be happy until my neurosis goes away. Anything that's true for you. And then look back over that list when you're done with it and consider that these thoughts, these beliefs are blocking your natural state of happiness, and spend some time seeing each one of these things that you cling to, these attachments, for what they really are. A nightmare that causes you excitement and pleasure on the one hand, if you get them, but also and frequently worry, insecurity, tension, anxiety, fear, unhappiness on the other. And if you look carefully enough, you'll see that the one and only thing that causes unhappiness is these attachments. And this does not mean that that you don't enjoy the outside world, not at all. You go for what it is that you have as a goal.
Yeah.
Dreams are all of that, but don't pursue them with the false belief that they are going to become, that achieving them is going to become a sort the gateway to your happiness.
Yeah.
Nothing outside there in the world, whatever you shift the world into, you, and to realize something you want to create, all the good things you want to do with the world, that don't think that however that turns out, it will determine whether or not you're happy. Remind yourself, I'm happy already. And through detachment, you really begin to enjoy those things. You're not measuring yourself against it. You're not seeking approval from other people through it. Your approval comes from within you, and your enjoyment of what and the success you're having really in large measure is the total immersion and engagement you're having with working with something that you love. There's nothing better than that in this planet.
No, I agree. And sometimes, the world that we live in, people are like, oh, you got to do what you love what you do. But, you can still do what you love what you do, and not get paid for it too. And I think that's something that people need. There's this whole, I don't know if you noticed that some people are like, you work for yourself, right? You have your own business, you become an entrepreneur, you become a small business owner, and then they pin them up against, people who work 9 to 5, as if one is more than the other. It's like, guys, like, do what you love what you do, whatever format or whatever that vehicle looks like, you know what I mean? And just go within, you know what I mean? Yeah. But before we end, I really want to know about your new book. That I want to learn about your book, the End Stress.
Oh, my book, The End of Stress. Yeah. Well, a lot of what we're talking about here is in there. It lays out for people in the beginning of the book the profound discoveries that neuroscience has made over the last 25 years, in which they discovered that our brain is changeable. You can reprogram it. And prior to that, they felt that whatever was programmed into your brain, or whatever you inherited through your genetics in terms of your brain, was set in concrete, because the brain wasn't changeable. The brain didn't create new brain cells, so how could it change? Well, they operated from that point of view for 100 years and discovered when they got the technology to look more deeply into the brain, that the brain is quite changeable. And it's called neuroplasticity. So the first part of the book is talking about that theory. It's not even a theory anymore. It's definitive now. The theory that a change in experience changes your brain. Either way. So if you're a happy person, you can do it with children. It's even better to do it with children. Children are happy automatically. Then they get, they're inherently happy. And then they go, born into dysfunctional families. They go off to dysfunctional schools. They make friends with dysfunctional kids, and their brain begins to get wired out of that innocence. So if you could actually even be a content and happy person and have something traumatic in the world happen to you that causes you to be fearful and stressed, and your brain will then wire for that. It'll make you more defensive. It'll make you more in survival mode in the way that you function in the world. So what they found is a change of experience changes the brain. And so what changes experience more than anything else? Well, it's a change in attitude. If you feel pessimistic about your opportunities to make something happen you want to have happen, and something comes along and gives you a shot of optimism, like, what, with this, if this was there, and if I brought this in, yeah, maybe we really could make something. Now you're beginning to become excited. You're experiencing optimism. And if that becomes not only a change in the moment, but a change in attitude that's being reinforced continuously, your brain will change. So that most of us have brains that default to a lower system called the amygdala, or the limbic system, and it's where the fear center of the brain is, where fight, flight, or free reaction come out of. And what we know is that those reactions dump a whole lot of stress hormones into your system, which kind of for about 5 minutes really power the reaction, but then it degrades from there. And that if you're having those reactions all the time, that you're building up a level of stress hormones that are toxic. And those toxic stress hormones actually reinforce the systems that make you fearful and anxious, and dumb down, actually prune down the prefrontal systems that make you intelligent and creative and positive and forward moving. And on top of all of that, it also affects the chemistry of the stress hormones also affect our chromosomes, so that our body begins to put out abnormal cells that cause cancer and premature aging. That's why you see a person, they look 10 years older than they actually are. And so it used to be believed that if you were wired like that, which most people are to one degree or another, we're all living rather stressful lives in our modern society. Well, it's because we're wired that way, and it was believed couldn't do anything about it. You're stuck with your wiring. Well, it turns out that what changes your experience, the attitudinal shift that changes your experience most, is operating from practical spiritual principles that help you to recover your peace, to center yourself in love, to open your heart, to be kinder, to feel connected. Those kinds of practices that are in a practical spirituality actually have the capacity to produce a change in your experience, a gradual change in your experience of how you see yourself and how you see the world, and how you function in the world in a much more positive way. And after that, all of that programming that programmed you to have these knee-jerk stress reactions, they begin to prune back down. And then the condition of your brain is such that these higher regions actually now begin to expand in the absence of And so what they've decided with neuroplasticity is that human potential is unlimited. It's just a question of getting out of fear that leads to that opens the way to that unlimited amount of growth.
I love it. So that's in the book?
That's in the book. And then what the book
Wow.
provides after, it convinces you that you have every reason to hope for a better life, a better experience of work and family and self. Then it lays out the proven psycho-spiritual practices that produce that change in experience that changes your brains. And so it's very practical in that way. It gives people exercises and challenges them to, do journaling and things like that. It brings them through the process that will lead to that neuroplastic change that they're looking for.
I'm so grateful that you did it because, like what you said, we all go through life, and some of us, our cards were dealt and we didn't want it, but we need hope. And if we, regardless of statistics and what people say you cannot do, your ability to transform your mind and how you view things in life and being aware, and you just think, okay, it is what it is, and you make the best of it. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? I've been through so much, and that I realized that I'm just more relatable. Like, I had to finally step back, but you know what? I'm just the most relatable person who have compassion and empathy, and people can feel safe with me because of all those things. And then I can come into the world and be more loving because I want to leave the world better than what it was.
You are a light. You are a light, girl.
Thank you so much for your time. What is the best way for people to find you? Which website? I'm going to have it listed here, but what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, tell them to go to demellocenter.com. If they're interested in buying this book, now's a good time to buy it because, it's been out now almost a year, and, the Amazon drops the price in it. And so,
yeah.
And there's also an audio book that's been made that Simon and
I like audios. It's so fun. Yeah,
you can get an audio book of it. You can get a Kindle of it. And they're all kind of coming down in price. So now's a good time to, if buying that book speaks to you, now's a good time to go get it.
Okay. And then also, Stop Fixing Yourself. And then your book is also available to online.
Yes, it's available at Amazon. It's called The End of Stress: How to Rewire Your Brain.
I had a question. Are you do you post regularly on Facebook, or is there a YouTube channel like that we can find you? No, I'm not. I'm not
really too good at it's keeping up with social media, but they can go to Facebook. For a while I used to post a lot. I posted a number of little slides with short little sayings that really help me. So they're there, and if they wrote down Don Joseph Goeway, which is my name, and Facebook, they would find a link to that page. And I think they're a number of the slides have quotes from Mello as well as other great sages and psychologists and people, so they could get that there. But the Mello Center has lots of stuff.
Consistent. Yeah. Okay.
Instagram. And this next year we are also going to be creating a community where people can meet and talk with each other, people who have involved themselves in reading his books and working with his approach, and they can share that with each other and help each other reinforce it. So we're going to be bringing online community platform up for people to join and participate in.
Ooh, that'll be awesome.
I think
to virtually connect with people, like how we can do it social media platforms and whatnot. So you guys are going to create a hub for people to connect.
The book is also coming out in September, maybe a little earlier for lucky. It's called A Year with Anthony DeMello. And what that book is it has a number of his key passages of his themes about life and spirituality and happiness and growth. And there's 52 of them, one per week. And so it invites you to stick with it for a week. And behind it, it has a set of 2 lessons that you can do,
Nice.
2 exercises that you can do that reinforce what he's saying in those themes that we've put together. So that is going to come out. It's going to be a really cool book. You can journal in it and do all kinds of things in it. So we're excited about that too.
Oh yeah, that's exciting, because then it's a practicality of taking everything he's learned and then simplifying it. And if you're someone who's new to him, like, it's something easily accessible and, applicable. Like, once a week you get a new lesson, a teaching, and then you book. So, well, I could be with you forever, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for your knowledge, and I'm so grateful. I don't know, I feel emotional. Going through what you went through and just being able to find yourself, to finding happiness, to have peace. It's really a blessing. It's not easy to be able to get yourself to that point, because I've been there. When you look out the window and all you see is blackness, you don't see the maple tree, you don't see, you know what I mean? But I'm just really grateful that you have the courage to do what you do for Anthony DeMello, and also to write your own book. And it's not only changing people's lives today, but the generations to come. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Oh, right back at you. Same. I feel the same way towards you.
Thank you. But I look forward to following you and seeing what you do. On your website, does it show like other podcasts that you're going to be on also?
No, but there are a number of more than 100 audio clips of DeMello. DeMello was filmed quite a bit back in the 80s. So
that is so awesome, though.
The resolution isn't like 4K, but it's wonderful clips of him talking, giving a workshop. And so we've clipped them into 5-minute, 6-minute kind of things. You can go there. It's called the Happiness Podcast. There's a blog there. There's a way in which you can, if you buy the book, Stop Fixing Yourself, this book, if you buy that at the website, you'll be given a free gift of a whole workshop on video with a workbook that you work with. So there's a lot of wonderful things that our website is doing. And in a week or two, our new website's coming up, and it's very interactive with people who come to visit. We're trying to create a workshop within our website, so that
nice.
So yeah, please give the website a good look. I think you'll find it interesting. And we also send out, if you join
the newsletter,
sign up, you'll get a newsletter, and you also get a DeMello quote of the day, and they're really wonderful quotes.
Yeah, I've seen some of his videos, and he's just so his energy is so peaceful.
It is very peaceful,
and we need more peace. We need more peace. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm just gonna end here, and hold on just a second.
Hello. Oh, I guess maybe it's, let's see. Oh, I see.